what your thoughts are on MDMA, something that really is created in a lab, as something that could be, I mean, medicine is such a, again, vague and overused word, but something that could be beneficial to the human experience if done in the right manner. And then also your thoughts on, we talked a lot about the 60s and 70s. What's going on today? Do you want to get into any of that?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We're here for all of it. All of it's good. I mean, it's important to have context where we are to the present, how we got here. I think that's critical to establish.
Yeah. So MDMA. Again, the official story that you see in the New York Times and all the other major media is mostly wrong. Okay. In the same way that I just pointed out how the official narrative about LSD and psilocybin is wrong. There's another layer to this that's really very interesting. Okay, so my own personal story, I was really young. I was like 25 years old. I just graduated from college. I was going to go to the University of Chicago, but Stan Grof invited me to be his work with him. So I went down to Esalen and I was his assistant, and I was I was learning how to use LSD from what, you know, Grof. It's like just a brilliant man. I love him dearly, and I learned a lot of really important lifelong tools for guiding trips and so on with him. And in late 1981, I went to, I had already known Leary. I went to a talk that he gave, and there got my first MDMA. And I was also a bit like, I didn't really want to take synthetic stuff. I was okay with using plants, and I'd make an exception for LSD because I was sort of from a plant. But MDMA was purely synthetic, and Tim and some other people that were there said, you should try this. I was already being sort of groomed to be one of these people that was going to help introduce the subject again. I was a smart young kid in good schools. And so I had MDMA, had my first experience, and it was like, wow, that's some really great stuff. And I thought this is really going to be a perfect drug to help reintroduce psychedelic therapy, and because it was gentle, the collective unconscious didn't explode on you. It was just beautiful. And so I wanted to get some more, and I learned that the guy behind all this was Alexander Shulgin. And so you guys know who that is, I presume.
Of course,
I don't.
Sasha Shulgin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ben
So
does.
I'm just being myself. I hitchhiked up to Berkeley, to where Shulgin was still teaching in the chemistry department. And I waited, I knew what day was his office hours, and I waited for his lecture to end, and I went to his office hours, and I introduced myself as a person that was really interested in psychedelic drugs. I was Stan Grof's assistant, and I had some MDMA, and it was really amazing. And he said, well, what can I do for you? And I said, Sasha was just so jolly, and he was a really lovable man. And I said, well, can I get some more? And he said, it wasn't illegal. This is 1981 or 82, I forget exactly. And he laughed, and he said, I said, oh, no, I couldn't do that. And we chatted a little bit about the history of psychedelics and what might happen and why they were banned and la da da. And he liked me and I liked him. And then at the end of the conversation, I'm getting ready to leave, and he says, but I can teach you how to make it. And I thought, that's interesting. Never thought of that.
Give a man a fish. Teach him.
So I go back to Esalen, and short time after that, I'm hitchhiking again. I'm looking for a place to live in Santa Cruz. and I'm hitchhiking, and this guy picks me up, and I happen to notice he's got the back seats full of chemistry textbooks, and the Beatles are playing on his radio. In fact, they actually are playing "All You Need Is Love."
Wow.
And so I said, "You want to make some drugs?" He looks at me, and I said, "It's not illegal." And we had a conversation, and next thing I know, some period of time goes by, and we go back up to Berkeley, and Sasha instructs, and not only instructs us, but tells us where to get materials off the books.
Mm-hmm.
And and so the next thing I know, I think I borrowed $500 from my old best friend, and we already had the state of the art lab up there on the campus. And the next thing I know, we're with a $500 investment, we're able to produce like a kilo of totally pure, pharmaceutically pure, tested on a nuclear magnetic resonance thing.
Wow.
And wow, like magic dust, I call it. And so I had an agreement with Sasha that I would keep this. I wasn't going to be a drug dealer. I was going to be an underground researcher. And the thing was that we wanted to keep this underground. That one of the things about the 1960s that was so chaotic and disruptive was that these powerful drugs, instead of being used in a sacred, mature psychological context, were popularized and bandied about and profaned, and people who weren't ready for them took them, and it was a lot of sensational crap. And if it just stayed underground, that would have been better. So that's what we wanted to do here with MDMA. And the agreement was that I would turn people on. I began this study of its effects, and giving it to people, mature, responsible people, and ask them to practice the mysteries. That is, don't talk about this. We're going to keep this quiet. Write down what it does for you. You can get it from me secretly. I mean, I gave away practically the whole thing. We made bunches of it. And I had a little business. Yeah, I was kind of supporting myself, but it was a secret and really cool thing. And I really should write a book about that and the different people that I turned on and what sort of doors that opened for me. And it was a wonderfully exciting time, because I agree with you, Ben, if that's what you were implying, that MDMA is a really, really marvelous, unique, and wonderful medicine.
I think Sasha really showed that some of the analogs can, I don't know, at least for me, I know a lot of people try and stick with the plants and only the plants. And I think some of the analogs, they have merit. So that's why as I looked at MDMA, having had an experience with it, which was just fully phenomenal, but the next day I needed a little bit of a recovery period, as you do even with plant medicines. And with a little bit of supplementation, some, I think vitamin B and a few other things, was a great experience. So yeah.
Totally great experience. I gave it to lots and lots of people, never had a problem. And, but it changed very quickly, because one of the people that got MDMA in my little project was a guy named Rick Doblin. And
wow.
Of all of the people, and I turned on some really interesting and very famous people, like Hunter Thompson, and I became friends during this period because of MDMA.
Very cool.
And other people very famous. But Rick Doblin was the only one who didn't keep the secret. Not only did Rick Doblin not keep the secret, Rick Doblin called the government, and he called the media, and he told them that there was this new, not illegal love drug that a bunch of therapists in Northern California out of the Esalen Institute were using in psychotherapy. And he called Reagan's drug czar. He called the media. He inserted himself right into the middle of this thing, pissing all of us off, kind of shutting down parts of our operation, and was a major factor in MDMA becoming a secret underground thing to a hotly contested social issue. And then it became known as ecstasy. And then, okay, so I was at that time between like 82 and 85. I was sort of bilocated. I was a graduate student at the University of Chicago, and I was also at Esalen, and I had an Aspen thing, and I was just moving around. And then MDMA, largely because of Doblin, became front page news, the new love drug. This thing was now started. And so it was time for us to move fast and try to get research done and published that showed its psychotherapeutic value. And so I'm at the University of Chicago, right? That's one of the best schools in the world. And I went in and and the guy who was the head of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Chicago was a guy named Daniel Friedman, who was the president of the American Psychiatric Association and considered one of the most powerful people in modern psychiatry. His research, he's like Nobel Prize caliber scientist, helped some way identify serotonin. I don't know exactly what his thing was, but he was a very big deal, editor of the major journal. And he did a lot of research with LSD back in the earlier days. Brilliant, really wonderful guy. And I just went in and met him and I said, so we have this new drug that's fucking amazing. And he listened to my stories, and I had a stack of, reports about people, having these breakthroughs in dealing with trauma or dealing with drug addiction or dealing with relationships or just opening up to spirituality. And he was very impressed with all this stuff. Okay. This is the president of the American Psychiatric Association. And he liked me, and he said, well, yeah, I need to introduce you to, and he introduces me to a guy named Charles Schuster. Now, anybody out there that's listening who's read, has Michael Pollan's book, do a little index work and find out who Charles Schuster is. Okay, so Charles Schuster in the early 1980s was head of the University of Chicago Drug Abuse Research Unit. And I went in and said, Dr. Friedman said I should tell you about this stuff and that we should get some research going ASAP. And so I gave some to Schuster. I gave some to his lab guys. That's how you make friends. They all love me. We all shared this wonderful stuff. And we were beginning like, okay, this is going to be the next phase of MDMA. It's going to come out of the underground and we're going to quickly get it in here. Okay. And so then I decide I'm going to write a paper about my research. I called it The Curative Effect of MDMA. And I scheduled a presentation at the University of Chicago on May 31st, 1985, which happens to be the day that the DEA declares MDMA illegal. So
what a coincidence.
I'm on my way out the door from where I was staying in Chicago to go deliver this lecture on the curative effect of MDMA, a drug I'd been handing out to students and professors as this new, safe, intermediate psychedelic drug. Everybody's loving it. But I walk out the door that day, the headline, big headline in the Chicago Tribune, ecstasy declared illegal. Huh? What the fuck? You read the article. It's citing Charles Schuster as the national expert. The guy who I had turned on just like 6 weeks earlier, and all his lab guys, he didn't know anything about this drug.
Yeah.
He suddenly quoted in the Chicago Tribune nationally, this drug causes brain damage. It causes a depletion of the serotonergic receptors in the brain. And therefore we have to, the government is referring to this guy's research and saying, we have to make this drug illegal right now to save brain cells. So you can imagine how I felt. You know, I'm about to give this lecture. There's 100 or so people coming to hear me talk about this project that I've been doing secretly for previous couple of years. And suddenly the front page news says it causes brain damage. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to the University of Chicago, but they really value their brains there.
Yeah.
So now this guy that's been giving this toxic substance, where I had been assured that there wasn't, it was within the accepted range that I was prescribing, 125 milligrams with 50 milligram boosters. It was safe. Yeah, there'd be a little recovery time. This is like totally pure stuff. So I had to do a little explaining, and I see this in the paper, and I call Schuster, and I say, what the fuck are you, like, what the hell? He goes, oh, Robert, look, I know, I'm sorry, you're upset about this, but I can't talk now. The NBC is coming to interview me in my office. If you want to come down, come on down. So I had time. I go to his office. There he is in front of these TV cameras. This is 1985. He's explaining this theory that he did research with MDA that showed that MDA causes this depletion of the serotonergic receptors in the brain, and therefore MDMA, because it's structurally related to MDA, might cause the same brain damage. Therefore, we should make it illegal. And he's explaining this to the national news. And I am fuming because I knew a little bit about this. Now, it happens to be that there are many medicines that are commonly prescribed, cold or allergy or diet pills, that are methylated amphetamines that bear a structural relationship to MDA. And I said, are you calling for an emergency ban on Sudafed and rah, rah, rah? And I started kind of yelling at him. And I said, you're doing just what happened with LSD, creating this controversial sensation. Remember when LSD became, well, you don't remember, but when LSD first started becoming popular, they said, oh, this causes chromosome damage. Don't making it really controversial and dangerous and exciting to people. And here he is telling this. I said, wait, he says, Robert, please. And he takes me back into his office. We'd become friends. He said, look, I know you're upset about this, but he said, look, and this is a direct quote, I'll never forget it. He says, the government gives me a lot of money. They funded he had a whole floor of the hospital there. The government gives me a lot of money. Sometimes I just have to do what they say.
There it is.
Whoa. And so, let me just finish. So, like a few days later, shortly thereafter that, back in those days, there was a very popular TV talk show, Phil Donahue did a whole thing on this new controversy, MDMA, ecstasy. Now it's called ecstasy. And who's on the program? Charles Schuster, this leading expert who'd known about it for 6 weeks. And Rick Doblin. Rick Doblin, who's an undergraduate with absolutely no academic or scientific credentials. In fact, the fact is that Rick Doblin had been busted for cocaine, dealing cocaine to undergraduates at his college in South Florida. Suddenly, he's on TV with Charles Schuster, and this debate begins. Charles Schuster saying, no, it causes brain damage, and Rick Doblin saying, oh no, it's great. Like, the fuck, where did you? And this is where MAPS gets started. And so it's because, and MDMA gets launched into public consciousness almost overnight. It goes from being a secret, very useful substance, sacrament, to the most popular recreational drug in the world. Almost like within a few months and years, and it remains that way. The most popular recreational drug in the world from like the mid-1980s all the way up through, still probably one of the most popular recreational drugs in the world. And who's making all that money? Who controls the MDMA trade, the international MDMA trade? Who's behind like the deforestation. They're ruining rainforests in Southeast Asia by cutting down all these trees that has a root that has a compound that's used to make MDMA. Who controls the international MDMA trade that's making billions and billions of dollars? At the same time, this international rave phenomena happens, where warehouses are filled with kids all over the world. MDMA is getting pumped into these places, and all these kids, even young, your age or whatever, they're like, instead of this being used as a sacrament, people sitting around candlelight communing with themselves and their intimate ones, it becomes rave. And then people are in there, everybody's that mind numbing, they call it music, that happens almost overnight. That's the op. That's soma. That's what Huxley is telling you. That's what Huxley is forecasting. Rick Doblin, over the next 20 or 30 years, whatever, collects millions of dollars from the psychedelic underground, like he's gonna solve this problem. He doesn't do anything to solve the problem. He's making billions of dollars for his buddies in Mossad, which is who controls the MDMA market. And you can just Google that. And and all the media about it is and then Doblin, finally comes out at the, like back in 2011 in one of his fundraising things and talks about the greatest moment in his life was when the Mossad chiefs let him into their secret headquarters at his family's mansion in Tel Aviv on Rothschild Avenue. So, sorry.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about that connection with Doblin to the Mossad. I'll have to do my due diligence.
Yeah. Well, you look, there's a fundraising letter that he puts out there, and this is, of course, they don't come right out and say it's Mossad. It was the headquarters for a group called the Hessig Foundation or something like that, HESG, which when you just do a little research there and who are the board of trustees of the Hessig Foundation, they're like people that can't leave Israel because they're wanted for war crimes. They're Mossad chief.
Make sure y'all head over to benjosephstewart.com, become a member. You'll have access to the growing library of deeper dives where I talk about all the stuff that I really can't talk about on YouTube. Make sure you get involved in the Discord chat. That's where a lot of the conversation is happening, talking about new theories, being able to interweave into the greater conversation that is how we awaken infinity. That's our highest potential. And I just want to remind you, you are the most powerful technology ever known to creation. Wield it like an artist with a conscience.